Joining me now from Washington, D.C., former Assistant Secretary of State under the Reagan and Bush 41 administrations, spokesman for the Association of Mature Americans, AMAC, Robert Charles. Robert, when officers are attacked who represent law and order, which also represents the civil society, which is part of the United States Constitution and the construct that we have among 330 million Americans, when these officers are attacked, it is tantamount to an attack on all of us, each individual Americans, because it is an attack on the civil society. And if the mayor of New York or the mayor of any of these other cities like Los Angeles or Chicago, they can't handle the situation, indeed, the president has not only the authority, but he has the duty to send in the troops, whether they are National Guard or whether he chooses to use the Insurrection Act, which is garnering a lot of attention right now, but that act is there for a reason.
Yeah, so let me unpack that with you for a moment. I fully agree that we are all Americans and our civil society is the cornerstone upon which everything is based. And obviously there are racial tensions. There have long been racial tensions, and it's important to have that conversation. I want to make two very important points, though. One is about deterrence. In New York, the law enforcement community is under tremendous pressure, and they're partly under that pressure because they were slow to react. That is to say, the mayor was slow to react,
Right.
but they're also under that pressure because there was a Bail Reform Act that literally says if you say you don't have enough money to make bail, you're immediately let out on the street. And there's plenty of online interviews with law enforcement in New York that show that's the case. The two big points are that in society at large, deterrence is everything, okay? So let me give you an example. In Washington, D.C., the president was criticized. He happens to be the commander-in-chief with respect to forces, any military or military, but also National Guard that can be deployed in Washington, D.C., because normally that would be a governor under Title 32. He is in Washington, D.C., federal district, so he does it in D.C. You have in Washington, D.C., 706,000 residents. You have 3,800 law enforcement officers, so that's a ratio of 1 to 185 citizens. Take L.A. In Los Angeles, you mentioned it a minute ago, they're trying to cut $150 million out of a $8.1 billion budget, okay, at a time when law enforcement needs help. You're talking about a city with 4 million people and 9,000 officers. So the ratio of officer to person there is 1 to 444. The last thing is we have been here before. The Weather Underground did this in the late 60s and the early 70s. We have been here before, and we need to move quickly on it. And that's what the president's doing.
Who would want to be a cop right now? You point out Los Angeles. Amazingly, the mayor of Los Angeles, obviously for political reasons, is out there saying that, hey, he's going to cut somewhere, as you mentioned, between $100 million and $150 million out of the police budget. They're overwhelmed as it is right now. And you talked about the ratio. And what he's going to do is he's going to give that money to, I guess, level the playing field in what he calls racial equality. I want to make another point about our civil society. We have racial equality in this country on the books, on the law. We have laws that protect all Americans, no matter our ethnic background. And this is very important, and they're all rooted in the civil society, once again, and in the United States Constitution. We have this crazy thing called equal protection under the law. We have the 14th Amendment. We have justice is blind. It's not perfect, Robert. It's not a perfect system. It doesn't work sometimes, but for the vast majority of Americans and the vast majority of the time, it does work and it needs to be respected.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.